2007, I was having breakfast with my friend and insurance agent, Wayne Ford. Wayne had just returned from a leadership workshop where he was encouraged to think about a big goal that he wanted to accomplish. So we spent some time talking about his big goal and what it meant to him. Later on in our conversation, he leaned over the table and looked at me. He said, "Rich, what's a big goal you have? What's a goal so big it scares you?" Well, I like Wayne. He's my friend. I trust him. So I stuck with him. I said, "Wayne, here's something that scares me. I want to speak before an audience of 30,000 people." Wow. And immediately a thought went through my mind. Did I just say that? Because although I had allowed that thought to be with me a long time, I had never had spoken that. That was a big deal. 2009, I was starting up my new business, and I was considering wrestling with a purpose statement. What are the right words to articulate the mission of this new company? And over time, it came to me. And here's what it is. Extraordinary Inc. is a movement dedicated to reviving the American workplace. And I remember as I thought that, I wrote that, I was like, wow, the American workplace. Couldn't I be happy with the North Carolina workplace? or perhaps the Greensboro workplace? Why not North Elm Street? They're good people. But that stuck with me, so I let it stay. It's a big idea. It's a big thought. About a year later, one of my clients said, "Rich, I've got some managers I want you to work with." And they're in Honduras and El Salvador and Costa Rica and Dominican Republic. And I said, "Sure." So I was at one of those events in Honduras, looking at my audience and working through a purpose statement for their work, for their department, their plant. Not the one that corporate had given them, that was crap. But one that they could actually believe in, that represented their words and gave meaning to the work that they did. And I said, here's an example. Before you go to work and create your mission, your purpose statement, let's look at mine. And perhaps it'll give you something to go with. So I turned, much like we have right now, at my purpose statement and read to my Honduran clients that our mission, we were a movement dedicated to reviving the American workplace. American. I looked at my Honduran clients and we laughed together. I said, wow, isn't it funny? Sometimes something so big can really be small. And so I went home from that trip and went to my website and my blog and all my printed material, and I updated the mission statement. The purpose statement now for Extraordinary Inc. says that we are a movement dedicated to reviving the global workplace. One culture at a time. And that was just a scary. It's big. It's a big idea. It's a big concept. And just last week I was sitting in that pew, and like we did this morning, reading with you the vision and mission of Unity in Greensboro. And the last sentence in that statement says, through affirmative prayer and inspired action, we help to heal and enlighten the world. Wow! Unity in Greensboro. Look around. This church, this little church, we're going to heal and enlighten the world. Man, it's a big thought, isn't it? It's a big idea. It's a big concept. It's a big goal. And preparing for this conversation today, over the last few weeks, I've been thinking about this idea of big. And although it's hard to wrap our arms around, perhaps there's some criteria that help us define when do we know something's big? When do we know an idea or a goal or a mission is big? And here's what I came up with. First and foremost, something is big when it causes us to get out of our comfort zone. Yeah, because nothing big originates from our comfort zone. And the fact that bigness causes us to get out of our comfort zone ultimately means that we'll come face to face, Angela, with fear. Because that's where fear resides. Not in here, out there. Now, often, many of us are afraid of fear. We're afraid of fear. I know I've been. Yet fear really is simply an indicator. It's a warning light that communicates to us that we are currently outside our comfort zone. That's all it is. Hey, you're outside your comfort zone. Just wanted to let you know. That's what I do. I'm fear. So if you're going to be outside your comfort zone when you embrace a big idea, a big thought, big goal, big dream, and you're going to face fear, it means you're going to have to pack some courage. You're going to have to. The only way we can move through fear is to be courageous. Now, I've spoken often about my two daughters. One is here, Carly. My oldest is in New York today. One of the blessings of being a dad with daughters is that you get to watch a lot of movies. About princesses. Princess Diaries 1 and 2. Seen them a bunch of times. The main character is Mia. She's a high school, middle class, living in San Francisco. When she gets the word that she's heiress to the throne of Genovia, she travels halfway around the globe to begin the coronation process. She's outside of her comfort zone. She is often afraid. And in those times when the fear causes paralysis, she recalls the voice of her deceased father. And she can hear his voice say to her that courage is not the absence of fear, rather the judgment that something else is more important than the fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, rather the judgment that something else is more important than the fear. See, a big goal, a big idea, a big dream is going to cause you to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to face the fear. But if you pack the courage, you'll know that something else is more important than that fear. And lastly, it will cause us to become more of who we're designed to be. When we have the courage to move through that fear, out of our comfort zone, towards some big idea, big concept, big goal, it will cause in us to become more of who we're designed to be. Now, from a spiritual perspective, let's think about this idea of bigness. And two scripture came to mind. One is in John where Jesus, the Christ, not his last name, says to his disciples, our disciples are simply followers of his truth, followers of his teaching, much like us. We follow teachings of a number of spiritual masters, one of them being Jesus Christ. So we are too are disciples. We are followers of the teaching, of the wisdom. And he said to them, like he'd say to us, you will do greater things than me. You will do greater things than me. What a powerful lesson from a powerful teacher. In the book of Ephesians, the writer Paul says that you, encouraging the people who will read his letter, you have the power to do immeasurably more than you can ask or imagine, according to God's power that is at work within you, that lives within you. That you, me, we will do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to God's power that it is at work within us. So it's really part of our makeup. We talked so recently about our nature. Part of our DNA is to have this life that rings big. So what are some steps? Let's talk about some fundamental principles or fundamental steps that we can use, that we can apply to manifest big in our lives. The first step is to think it. Simply to think it. To take off our filters, our big boy and big girl filters, and allow thought to come to our mind. We know that. We know in Unity teaching that a thought is a seed that grows a future. Now, if you want more on this concept, listen to Todd's message last week. Wow, the power of our thought. So on our YouTube channel, or it's also on audio on our...
It's also on our Facebook. I think audio is on the website
Yes.
and YouTube.
Our Facebook, our website. Listen to, watch Todd's message last week on the power of thought. What I love about Todd is that he speaks or he lives the message. Todd lives the message he delivers, which makes it more powerful. So the first step to living, embracing, being big is to think it. Secondly, is to write it. There's a Chinese proverb that says the weakest ink is better than the strongest memory. The weakest ink is better than the strongest memory. Now, interesting thing about these principles we talk about, children get these. Children get these concepts. They don't need this message. They don't need Unity principles because they are naturally already living them. They haven't been stamped out yet. And I was thinking back about this idea of writing out or doodling or coloring, as children will do. First of all, children are free to think. They don't have the filters that we have, so they think big all the time. They say crazy things. They come naturally to them. And then they color and write and design often those thoughts on paper. When I was 14, I had a big idea. And this big idea wrapped around the sport that I love, which was soccer. And I didn't know any better. So I began to write out what this vision should look like. And I created a book. I'm going to read part of this for you because you might not be able to see it. This is what this book says. This scrapbook is about Rich Schlentz. It was started on November 11th, 1978. 7:11 p.m. Inside this book, my sports career is traced as far back as 1974, indicating that sports might be what I need instead of English. No names have been changed. This is a non-fiction book. Some of the greatest moments in sports have been brought back to life right before your very eyes. Pictures never before seen by the public. So this is how a 14-year-old thinks. I'm not limited by what others might think or say. I was free to dream. And that came out, that expression, the thought came out in writing. And that's not it. This book had chapters. Chapter 1, as a kid. I was reflecting back upon my life. Chapter 2, high school years. Now, I wrote this as a freshman in high school, so I was already working in the future. Chapter 3, as a college man. And finally, Chapter 4, the pros. You see, we get this in our youthfulness. It's like Rumi, right? He says, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. You know, our youthfulness understands that if something is important and big and powerful to us, then we can't help but to express it and write it down or doodle on it. And actually, in 2010, I was meeting with one of my colleagues. We were having lunch, and we were talking about this very thing, this manifestation of big in our lives. And I had been, prior to that, writing out goals, like bullet points. You know, goal 1, subheading 2, adult-like. And in this conversation with my colleague, I recalled this doodling exercise. And I thought, you know what, I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't just enjoyed writing and creating and drawing out these goals. I've made them kind of stale and oldish. So I went back home that day to my book, my vision book, and I began to doodle my new goals. That was 2010. Today, most of those goals have already manifested. So the power of writing, not just thinking, the second step is writing out what's important to you. Thirdly, is speak it. After you think it and write it, speak it. Much like I said to Wayne Ford that one day at our breakfast. Let the words come out of your mouth. There's some power in giving yourself permission to say what is big, what is the future for yourself. Now, I recommend doing that around people you trust. People who will support, because that's the next step. The next step is support it. We got think it, we got write it, we got speak it. The next is support it. Is find some people who want to believe in and with you. Now, after I spoke those words to Wayne Ford that morning, I had a date that night. I had a date with Ivy. Now, some of you have not been, maybe been here for the last year or year and a half or less, and you might not know Ivy. So brief history, Ivy was my wife. We met in 2006, got married in 2007, soon after her diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer. We came to Unity together. This became our spiritual home. She was very active here, prayer chaplain. She led some ministries. She left a mark here more than I will ever imagine too. And so January 2012, she passed. She transitioned because of her breast cancer. But we were dating 2007, and we had a date that night after that conversation with Wayne Ford. I told Wayne Ford 30,000 people. And I had a date that night at the Revival Grill. How many remember the Revival Grill? Man, I hate that place left. What a cool place, right? So we were having dinner together and reviewing our day. And I said, you know, I had lunch with Wayne Ford, our breakfast with Wayne Ford this morning, and something crazy came out of my mouth. She said, what was it? I said, I told Wayne Ford that I want to speak before an audience of 30,000 people. I'll never forget her expression. Because it was so clear, as doubtful as I was about myself, she was equally as confident. I watched her face, and the words that followed, she was like, absolutely. Yes, you'll do that. In that moment, I recalled Les Brown, a motivational speaker, who says to us that sometimes we got to believe in someone else's belief in us until our own belief kicks in. Right? Sometimes we have to believe in someone else's belief in us until our own belief kicked in. And that night, over that dinner, I believed in Ivy's belief in me. We need people in our life who are going to come alongside of us and support and encourage and believe in us before we're able to believe in ourselves. It's called support it. Our next step is this idea to act upon it. So first, we're going to think it, then we're going to write it, then we're going to speak it, then we're going to support it, and then we're going to act upon it. Small, little action steps that move us towards the manifestation of that big goal, big thought, big idea, big dream. In 2005, I joined the National Speakers Association Carolinas chapter. I was so excited to be amongst my peers, speakers. A lot of people don't get us. You do what? Or like my daughter says, people pay you to talk? So I'm with my peers. And I'm eager to learn. And one of the first things I hear from this seasoned, successful speaker is that we need to write books. Well, I'm not in that club. I'm in the speaker club. Speaker. And he went on to tell me and tell the audience why it was so critical that as a successful speaker, you had to have a book. Now, the tapes in my mind that were alive and well at that point told me that I was a slow and impaired reader. Because those are the tapes I got about third grade when I was in a special class with people who were slow readers. So words, English, had always been the part of me that was slow. So that programming, along with this guy's idea, were not aligning. But over time, seeing the professional speakers that I wanted to be like, I accepted. I allowed that thought to come in my mind. I said, okay, we're gonna write a book. That's something we're gonna have to do. So I began then to write it down. Right? The first was to think it. Second was to write it down. One of the things Ivy and I did, we had a little practice where we made what we called milestones. We would take big ideas, big vision, big dreams, big goals, and we type them out and attach them, we tape them to a little stone. We called them milestones. And they were markers to remind us of where we were going. Now there's a collage in our house right now, which is a kind of a memorial collage to Ivy, and a number of those milestones are in there. Here's one milestone, which speaking before an audience of 30,000. And here is another one, first book. You see, after I allowed that thought to come in my head, we wrote it down. We wrote it down that there's got to be a book. And then I spoke it. I began to let the words come out to people. Yeah, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to be an author someday. It didn't sound very confident, but I said the words anyway. And then I had people who supported it. People who believed in me like Ivy, like my daughters, like my writing coach, like my friends who would edit my work, and who would say, Rich, this is good. This can be published. And beginning to believe in their belief in me. That was in 2005. The action steps were simple. Journaling. Started to journal. I started to blog. I started to write articles. And someone reminded me when my first article was published, Rich, you're an author now. You've got an art. I said, I am? Holy cow, I am! But I really wanted to be a book author. So I resisted that a little bit. Strange how we are. 2012. 7 years later, this showed up. Now, the employees have quit, they just haven't left. Which is my first. Here's the language. This is my first book. See, the language, it implies that there's more coming. I recommend that you don't use it in relationships like this is my first wife. It doesn't resonate the same. The first book is okay. Now, what's even better in the first book is when you wrap some books up, or you put them in a box, and you take them to the post office to mail them to people who've bought them. That's awesome. And that happened 7 years after the thought was allowed to come through to me. So, let's talk about opportunities for us. What are the opportunities for us? And that is really to give ourselves permission. That's where this all starts, is to give yourself permission to download thoughts that are divine. Because that's what these are. These are divine thoughts that are needed, that need you to show up. Divine thoughts that need you to manifest them. Because through, in, and as you, big things show up as part of your DNA. So give yourself permission to download those thoughts. And then write down those thoughts. Doodle, color, create something about those ideas. Speak it. Speak the idea to people you trust. Ask someone to come alongside of you, to believe in you before you're capable of believing in yourself. Ask them to encourage and inspire you. And then take small action steps, small little steps that move you towards that manifestation of bigness. Now, I have not spoken to an audience of 30,000 people yet. Biggest audience, about 1,100. Got a ways to go. I have not, as far as I can tell, Extraordinary Inc. has not revived the global workplace yet. But recently, in conversation with Elaine and I, we're partnering some together. I'm seeing it more and more. I'm feeling it more and more. And that audience is getting closer and closer. I'm not discouraged. Here's why I'm not discouraged. I'm using a lesson from nature. Because nature tells us when you sow a seed, and then you nurture that seed with some water or some fertilizer, things happen beyond your view that are critical. You step back and say, I planted a seed, and I've watered, and I fertilized. Nothing's happening. Guess it wasn't meant to be. You know what? That's a bad path. Do not go down the meant to be path. We know that in due time, that seed will sprout. And what has been happening beyond our eyes' view. In other words, sometimes our physical eyes are an illusion. Things are happening that we can't see. So it's the same thing. I'm not discouraged. I know there's things happening that I can't see that are arranging those 30,000 people to show up someday in an arena to hear me speak. But I already know what my opening line is. I've already worked out my opening line. And I know that someday there's some things happening beyond my view, beyond my vision, beyond my physical eye, that's going to manifest a global revival in the workplace. And so do you. You've got that same universal energy working on your behalf. If you will think it, if you will write it, speak it, support it, and act upon it. We're going to close with an affirmation. Before we do that, let me mention something. This book is available today. They're a Unity bookstore. Now, they're donated. These books are donated. They retail on my website or on Amazon at $15. Travis offers them to you for $10. That's 30% off. They're also autographed. They're autographed somewhere in here. They are, believe me. They're autographed. Just trust me. So the money goes to Unity. So if you think the book might be valuable, buy it, save money, and all the proceeds go to Unity.
Wow, thank you.
So here's how our affirmations are going to go this morning. Generally, we have an affirmation that we recite together. It's not going to happen this morning. Here's how it's going to go. I'm going to speak this to you. I'm going to speak these words into you. Now, they're going to be on the screen. It's a quote from Marianne Williamson. Many of you have heard this before. Now, I've tweaked a little bit. I've done what Elaine does. You know how she tweaks? You sing a song with Elaine. It's never the song that was originally written. Elaine makes it better. So I made this paragraph better by making it personal, using the I am language, Pat. Because Pat knows the I am language is the most powerful language out there. You are welcome to read along. You're welcome to close your eyes and just take it in. Either way, it's a gift to you. Don't utter a word. Simply take in these words that are your affirmation for today. My deepest fear is not that I am inadequate. My deepest fear is I'm powerful beyond measure. It is not my light. It is my light, not my darkness, that most frightens me. I ask myself, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who am I not to be? I am a child of God. My playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around me. I am meant to shine, as children do. I was born to make manifest the glory of God that is in me. It's not just in me, it's in everyone. And as I let my own light shine, I unconditionally or unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As I am liberated from my own fear, my presence automatically liberates others. And so it is. Namaste.
Amen.